Why is there doom and gloom surrounding the topic of AI? Now, there have been multiple arguments that are against the proliferation, further development, and human usage of AI. But why? What are these counter arguments, and how are they even valid? I think that when we present arguments for or against AI, they're really coming from a certain premise that may not be necessarily entirely factual, because all facts are based on something fundamental that simply is not up for debate. I call this truth, and some may call it absolute, but whatever you call it, it can't be contested because it rests independently of human characterization and personification. It is the foundation and origin of everything that is and will ever be. That is precisely why we can trust it. So if one does not state a claim rooted in truth, how can he validate his claim? Let us begin with the claim that AI is an entity unto itself that has the capacity to make independent decisions. Now, by this I mean independent of human judgment. For instance, we know that if AI is prompted to create the plans for a skyscraper, it will do so, but at the command of an agent. But what if AI is in a position to make a judgment call, one that raises moral or ethical issues? How can a complex system that is inanimate be trusted with ethical decision making, such as choosing candidates for a job, or even the candidate for presidency? Some may disagree on whether this is an ethical decision and will even argue that AI is more fair because it's non-human and can't discriminate. But I don't agree with that, because when it comes to making decisions based not solely on competency, we must rely on our own judgment. I mean, after all, is this not where we are now? AI decides whether to accept or reject job applications based on algorithms. This all seems so impersonal. However, algorithms are not equipped to detect the nuances that pertain to the character of a person. That's because AI lacks sentience, which is of the human heart. Sentience, which is enveloped in the conscience, is very powerful in that it operates as a guide to the comprehension of what it means to be good-natured. You see, friends, the human heart is the spiritual center and core of our identity. It is the definition of humanity. We must therefore embrace it. But we won't. Instead, we want to deny reality. We want to produce something that is like our reality shows and social media and news, fake. But we want it to be substantially better than we are. It cannot have weaknesses or imperfections. It must have the ability to know what we don't and what we can't possibly know. It must therefore possess infallibility, which is a characteristic of a God. But look where we are now. We are faced with measuring the efficacy of what we have made. We are to question this. How did we get to this point? What kind of world do we desire? And what kind of people do we want to be? I touched on this in another talk, but I believe that this is worth revisiting because it forces us to stop looking at the material world and allow man, that's right, us, to cease from forming baseless opinions and unfair judgments. You see, we must now, through introspection, look at our own motives. And by observing ourselves, we can understand why the world is the way it is and how it came to be. So where am I going with this? The dismal view of AI stems from a pessimistic view of the human spirit. It is, in essence, a lack of understanding of the ways of God, nature, and man. Now, when I use the word God, I never mean organized religion or a man, a mortal man. God is a word that encompasses the whole of life, as does nature. and I often use these words interchangeably. I want to provide context to what I've been talking about thus far. That is why I must bring nature into this. If we are to believe that we are animate beings that somehow can experience feeling, and those feelings come from being in touch with our emotions, because many of us feel and we don't want to feel because we don't want to come in contact with emotions. I'm telling you, my friends, emotions are essential to our livelihood, into what it means to be alive and what it means to have sentience. AI, an inorganic network of programs and codes, is simply not. Therefore, how can we accept AI as a trusted authority on making ethical decisions? In other words, why would we trust something that can't think, feel, or make moral decisions? Where do we come together on what's ethical or unethical? Where do we draw the line, friends? Do we all agree that AI is in fact in the position of making moral judgment? Do you think that AI can decide what's wrong and what's right, what's evil and what is good? If we can answer these questions, then we can align ourselves using facts and rightfully find a way to use AI for our edification instead of our self-destruction. However, it goes back to fact-finding, and it goes back to being in touch with who we are. This has to do with matters of the heart, friends. Being in touch with our feelings, our emotions, not running from them, suppressing them, hiding from who we are, because you can't run from yourself. You see, at this time, AI is incapable of serving the highest principle of humanity because it cannot make ethical decisions. Ethics is rooted in the highest principle, which is love. An android can never cultivate love because it has no love. So if AI can't solve the most challenging issues of them all, the ethical, the decisions that determine whether people are sentenced to death or if a doctor performs an abortion. And by the way, I'm not sure if we've marked this territory yet. Is AI in a position to make these decisions? I don't know. I'm questioning everything. So I don't know if medicine is using AI. These are all hypotheticals. But if we are not yet there, we are definitely en route. If there is anything at all man would like, it is to not have to confront his ethical dilemma. If a robot performs a surgery and makes a grave error, an error leading to death, who do we hold accountable? Do we hold the robot, the AI intelligence, which is artificial, or the human being? Well, the human being didn't actually perform the surgery. You see, this is where we're going. AI is changing the way we look at law, moral, ethical law, the way we look at work, the way we define work, the way we define ourselves. That's why we have to have a guiding principle. If we do not have an absolute, a truth, something fundamental, something which we have to stand on to regulate this technology, it can and will be destructive. Yet, I still argue for AI. Let me continue. AI, because it is inanimate, can't really be deemed evil or bad. It also can't be held accountable for the destruction of humanity. AI is not real. It is a simulation that is programmed to model itself after the image of mankind. And if you notice, I said image of mankind. AI could never take the place of a real human. We must not forget this fact. I don't care what the media is telling you. The media has the ability to work on the subconscious, That is the part of you that is unaware and not alert as to your immediate surroundings and what could possibly be penetrating your mind. We have to really be more alert and pay more attention to what is being said to us and the images that we are viewing. It's not real and therefore cannot generate or create anything real. If it generates images of people, places, and things, please understand these things are not real. If you prompt AI to create a fiction or nonfiction story, neither would be real. That is because the source of reality is the core, the center of a human, and that is the heart. All that originates in the heart, in your heart, is real. Take comfort, friends, in knowing that contrary to popular belief, AI will not lead to our demise. This is something that most do not know. Should anyone or anything have the power to degrade or even destroy mankind, it is because people have believed in its ability to do so. The power of man, the power of mankind is the mind. As I have stated many times, reality is of the mind and heart, not what we see with the eyes on our face. That is why we must be vigilant and guard both the heart and the mind at all costs. We must also question what we see, hear, and what the world tells us is true. Now, it's okay to be skeptical. Skepticism is what makes a true philosopher. Because a philosopher is one who questions things and seeks the answers. So I'm making this case for AI, yet and still. Because AI is neutral and it can be used to edify humankind to a state where we can make ethical decisions, but only if the original motives of men are aligned with the matters of the heart. You see, we can't get away from the center, which is the heart. Allow me to explain. If we do not align our thoughts and feelings with self-nurturing values and principles that stimulate the fruits of virtue, we will not and cannot produce anything in this world that will better our character. If our character is faulty, then we will fail to do the right thing when necessary, when called to do it. That's the real test of an upright person. You do the right thing when it's necessary, and that has nothing to do with charity or planning to do the right thing or feeling obligated to do the right thing. You do it when it's necessary, and that's an unplanned moment. Friends, those who make good decisions have a strong heart and mind. They do not operate in fear. They operate in integrity at all times, surrendering to their character flaws and the flaws of others. Therefore, if man seeks to create anything, it must be for the purpose of the advancement of the human race. This is not simply about economic prosperity, because we have economic prosperity. Many people are prosperous, but yet there are many left behind. And where does that leave all of us? You see, I'm very well aware that some choose to be left behind, and they have that right. But then there are others who would like to advance themselves, but they are not privy to the knowledge and the wherewithal. They need help. You see, we're not as helpless as the elite would have us to believe. When we are left to our own devices, it is amazing how creative we become and how we learn to sustain ourselves. Friends, if you learned something from this talk and you would like to hear more, please subscribe, join us on the podcast. Until next time.